purging last night. Felt some this morning. I think we're live.
Are you going to stay, Damien? You stay.
Damien, stay. We need you to
he's going to. And we got a smudge, he's telling me. I'm falling behind on orders. Well, not orders. You know, thank goodness I'm back with Damien to keep me in order. For those of you who can't see, I'm petting Damien.
There you go. Here, let's see. Let's get this thing going. We got a couple of people in the house.
Allison, I can
Jody
share.
Lee and Rob Eden's here. All right. So I'm going to share this to the network, give people some time to get in.
You guys can see that we've got little Damien here on the screen.
Damien's looking pretty big, actually.
Oh, he's in full cat's mode. You know, he and the animal collective, as you know, are rising to the occasion, and stuff that they're doing is changing too, right? And so they're also going through some changes with ascension. And so today, earlier, he woke up and he came into me, and one of his eyes was really pussy and closed. And you know, he only does that. That's one of his signs that he's working through an energy.
Oh,
and
really?
So connected with him. Yeah, they work through energy just like we do, you know. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but especially the ones who have begun consciously taking on examining the role and the relationship of, you know, awakened animals on the planet, which he has. They take on certain things in terms of releasing the veil on animals or connecting animal consciousness, forming collective consciousness of animals. And so he was working on that this morning, and he said that his third eye was sore, and his eye here was like his representation to me, so that I could help him understand. And then, you know, that was what drew me into asking the questions. And so then, of course, we did some energy work together. And so hi everyone. If your animal is acting different today, I guess that message needed to come out first, and that's why Damien's being so insistent about it, is that animal companions, I guess, are
they're going through the same thing we are.
Yeah, in their own way, you know. So hi. Oh, I'm gonna share this too. I'm looking for a lighter. I don't know, Damien just came in here, and you know. So happy solstice.
Happy solstice to you. Happy solstice to everybody. What is this solstice about? What's going on with this solstice?
Well, I'm gonna make sure I can allow. Well, I mean, we're all to some extent. I mean, we can't uniform, you know, we can't make everything uniform. We can't presume that everybody's having the exact same experiences we are. I know you don't mean that, but I figure it's worth saying just in case we have some brand new people. I'm just trying to get this video on. But one of the things that is happening is that, okay, so all of these, all these timelines and stuff that we've been working on, all the stuff that we've been talking about for, did I lose you? All the stuff that we've been talking about for the last couple of years has finally started happening. I'm just going to focus on this because I'm fucking up whenever I do the thing. So I'm just going to trust that whoever comes, and I'm not going to try to control that process. Sorry. Okay, so focusing on the question with my heart now. Yeah, it's happened. Okay, so the major timeline transitions out of the third density has pretty much occurred. I think people are still using the word a lot, but I don't really think a lot of the planet really exists there anymore. We are moving through accessing the integrated grid system. So the merging of various forms of systems that was just completed over the last little bit. So that was what I was out doing. I'll share more about that.
Yeah.
And so with that system being turned on, and the whole kind of like, what it's done is it's shifted the way that we connect to energy.
Yeah.
And so entirely new realms of possibility that are not tainted or, you know, weighted by these old narratives and old stories that we had held on to for the last epoch as part of our circulation of, you know, the energies of creation that we were working through at this stage of ascension. You know, all of that is kind of over. We're being given kind of like a clean slate in a way.
Yeah.
And so it becomes incredibly important that we begin looking at ourselves as our main source of guidance and inspiration. The thing that is remarkable for me is that usually most of my work is all planet focused. Well, not all. I mean, I stay in balance, but I did the ceremony earlier today, which those of you watching now, you're free to go back to my YouTube page or in Soulogy or my Facebook page, IndiCrow Energetics, and get it. It's all about connecting to yourself. It's all about recognizing that not just today, but this whole gateway, so it's about 10 days or so, is a series of daily initiations. Because for a number of reasons. So reason number one, this new grid system that's turned on, so we have to learn how to connect to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like shifting the software. So we have to be able to unplug from one system and plug into another one.
And that's how we connect with each other too. Connecting with each other through the new grid.
Yeah. So like a lot of people were here feeling heart expansion.
Yeah. During
the ceremony that I did today, or were feeling a lot of heart expansion, or for me, I was feeling a lot of head stuff being readjusted. Oh, look, I've got a lot of fluff. I was feeling a lot of head stuff being readjusted as I was moving through like the gateway parts last evening, laying in bed. I could feel my entire brainscape be reorganized, and feeling like there's like it was being taken out and then putting back in, and then I could feel my chest cavity opening up, shifting around, things adjusting, and it was all really basically so that I would be able to connect to the updated systems that we've created, and also to be able to call forth that information inside of yourself that I've been asking for. Because one thing, going back to what you said, it's like this is all about taking time each day and connecting to what it is that you truly do desire, because in the way that this works now is creation through joy and inspiration, and the notion of pain and hardship, that was such an important part of our lesson in our last phase of narrative. We've really exhausted the realm of creation with that, I think. Well, I mean, we can always keep going, but moving into and checking into this new stuff. And so I feel passionately about encouraging people to take the time to gradually ease themselves into this, do the daily practice, do a ceremony with yourself each day for the next 10 days or so, and really keep that up. Think about what it is that you would like to connect to in your life, and, make sure that you're focusing on that, because this is kind of like Santa Claus's wish list, it's going to be you who delivers it to yourself ultimately. And a lot of it has to be with, the choices and decisions you make and your, tenacity to stay on your path. But it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like being gifted the whole chance to move into a whole other world of experience, but not having to forget this time. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of signs out there. I just pointed 5 or 6 different things. One, seeing a lot of photographs and videos of ships. 2, like for example, the physical part. You talked about the heart expansion. I saw 3 or 4 different comments and posts yesterday. I was laying in bed. I started having heart palpitations. My heart's just like about to burst through. I can feel it expanding, like someone's got a vice grip and pulling it apart. Saw people describe something to that effect. Yeah. Seems to be more, what's the word? Disclosure. And I don't mean from the mainstream. I mean from people, disclosing things, not just on a personal level, but on a wider scale. People that know things or privy to things. So there's a lot of stuff that's becoming louder and louder. I guess the truth's becoming louder and louder. And then we have the other part of it, which you're talking about, which is how do we navigate? How do we connect to this grid? How do we connect to each other through this grid? How do we do that? At a conscious level, And
I think, the one thing that I'm seeing happen a lot, right, too, is that as we move through this sequence, those of us who are still repeating the narratives where we are victims, or whether we have people have power over us, or, all that other stuff that we had been talking about maybe like last December, a lot of those ripples are coming up, and, there's going to be still people moving through that. And, it's very important that we allow that to happen and respect their journey in terms of, connecting to disclosure. I think part of it is that people are becoming better at listening.
Yeah, true.
And paying attention to what has always been there. Because, you know, one of the things that happens in a lot in sessions that I do, or in the work that I share with people facilitating their skills development, is that they're already doing stuff, they're already really highly connected, they're already receiving a lot of messages. But, you know, for whatever reason, they have the narrative that they can't, or they won't, or that it's not, or they expect it to come in a certain form. And so, you know, they're blocking themselves from being able to kind of see or be part of that flow. And so as our hearts open to ourselves, I think, and as we, with, you know, more routine, take the time to connect to the earth, you begin to realize how many ways it speaks to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other part of that, of course, in that we have done an incredible job of raising the vibration of this planet.
Yeah.
There are advanced systems capabilities turning on in a whole bunch of different types of species. Also in the human capability, which we more normally talk about, but I mean the advanced capabilities of plants, the tree network, which is a project we've talking about, you know, crystals, animals, you know, everything is kind of opening up and blossoming into a new iteration of its experience. And I think one of the nicest things about right now, and that I would advise everyone to do as much as they can, is to just be in this world with your heart open to experiencing it and allow yourself to kind of see those differences, be part of experiencing it, but also be part of, I guess, grounding it, exploring it on this earth, because there's also a whole lot of people who are, you know, here as creators. I mean, we all are, of course, but there are a lot of people whose skills are waking up. And, you know, the best thing that I can suggest in that, you know, talking about this being a skills awakening season, is, again, allowing yourself to explore your curiosity and to go deep in something.
Yeah.
You know, if there isn't already an answer for it, and even if there is, you know, maybe it's time for you to start seeking the answer within yourself, you know, and realizing that, hey, if this thing is catching your interest, your excitement, why aren't your thoughts good enough to come on a program like this to share? I mean, of course, it's really important to make sure that you're in alignment and high vibrational truth when you're speaking as much as you possibly can be. But it's time for people to release the veil of their inner expert and to begin to allow that person or those series of beings that exist in a unified soul to flourish.
Yeah.
We've got some pretty freaking amazing beings on this planet, you know, and I'm really excited to get to be here and experience what it is they're going to tell us, create, do, you know?
Yeah. True. Yeah. We spent, and we still do, but enough time going within to see what made us uncomfortable, you know, see what triggers us, see what puts us off balance. And now what you're saying is take that same introspection and find out what you really want. What do you desire?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And, you know, the focus of the ceremony that we did earlier today was all on that. So if people are looking for some guidance, you know, I've written a couple of pieces. I've been sharing them in Soulogy, sharing them through my own stuff. We'll be doing this again for Lionsgate, so stay tuned with us then. But, you know, one thing that people, I think, sometimes don't remember is that self-care part of transition. And that, you know, in the older days, of course, whenever the veil was thicker and things were a little different, we would oftentimes just wind up places, right? We just, you know, and that was good enough. And it still is good enough. You know, that is kind of what just happens when you're in the flow. But the taking the time to cultivate the relationship with yourself right now, and realizing that, you know, there is no spirit guide, there is no teacher, there is no expert who really is going to know better about certain things that you are here to experience, create, and maneuver than you.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and I also think that some people just love this planet so much and are so keen to get going that they forget to take moments to observe the sacredness of their life.
Yeah.
You know, and to celebrate that and to really go inside and in a different way. You know, this is ceremony. This is beautiful. This is a retreat with yourself about the things that you are grateful for, the things that are, you know, drive your curiosity, the things that you feel are in alignment, figuring out what those alignments are, you know, it's a lot of fun, and it helps also make sure that you're staying fresh as you continue on, because the earth is shifting so much right now, as you know, when there's just layers and layers and layers of the veil being dissolved, back to your point about disclosure, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, you might as well stay current.
What's your where has your, and just in your world, your, you know, in your connection with the universe, where has your intel been coming from recently? Is it dragons? Is it galactic? Is it everything? And what are you getting?
Well, the way that I speak these days, it's interesting that you asked that question. Good one. So I really work to connect to the essential form of an energy at this point. So, you know, in the earlier days, I would more specifically speak to a set of beings. And so maybe I might speak to representatives who are at a particular space, but ultimately at this point, I'm in a conversation with the creator aspect, the creator,
the whole
at all times. And so my information comes from honest to goodness research and observation. And then it's me who's pulling together the themes based on, you know, so I might feel the influence of a planet, go through, you know, a month of studying of what a particular thing was, and then, you know, maybe I don't even do anything with it then, but a few years later, it, you know, it all comes together. I've been studying for a really long time. Yeah. I'm like a library. And so trusting myself as the main source of information, I spend a lot of time in observation and meditation with the universe. Yeah. You know, creator, I speak and I do take counsel, but ultimately it's a synthesis of information that's based on my own personal experiences and observations. Yeah. And like how I'm able to feel through the energy essence of a situation or a line. You know, and different people will feel it differently. Yeah.
Yeah. How was it on your spontaneous trip and maneuvering through Europe in the present? It seemed like that's what you were doing. I know, because when we talked last time, what your situation was.
Yeah.
The day or two before you went to Amsterdam. But was that a precursor? I mean, what was your mood like? Was it your, I don't want to say your mood, your alignment like? It must have been at an all-time. Yeah.
I mean, when I go on these trips, half the time I don't even wind up doing what I think I'm going to be doing. It's mostly that I have the idea to get me into the direction that I'll need to be flowing in order to be able to figure out what has to happen. So I can't have any attachment to a plan. Right. You have like basic ideas. I will most likely be in this town around this day, but I'm always subject to change that plan, and I often do. And so like when I go on these trips, a big part of it is that I'm offering, like, so I'm called there by the energy systems, right? Right. And that's another main source where I get my information. So say, for example, I'm gonna talk about a grid system. I communicate with that grid system directly to learn about it. You know what I mean? And so I base what I'm sharing off of that grid system. And so my ability to communicate with the elements, it's usually some earth form that calls me where I need to go. And it's based on which skills I have. And so whenever I go on the road like this, my true objective is to put myself in the situations where my skill set is in its highest alignment and highest vibrational potential use to affect the most positive impact I can on ascension, right? And so there'll be a number of jobs that are up for potential, and which ones I will go to will depend on what's been achieved by other people in other parts of the grid workers collective or light workers collective, creators collective, whatever they call themselves, of the rest of the world. And so like whenever 2 months ago, for example, at Equinox, that's when I started this trip. I was like, March 1st, yes, giddy up, I'm buying my ticket to Paris, right? So I get the plane ticket and everything's fine. I think I'm gonna go to Karnak. It's this place. I have this basic routine that I thought I was gonna do, none of it, which I actually did, except for go to Paris. And it was okay. It's like I got there and I just knew that wasn't what needed to happen. And so I mean, this isn't my first time. This is kind of how I live my life these days anyway, for the last couple of years. So it's like, I just got there. I trust so much. I just do my alignments every day. I don't let myself get pulled into the other storylines, the other timelines that are happening all around me. And I just trust myself to know that I need to go in a certain place or do a certain thing at a time. And so as long as I stay clear and I don't fuck around, too much with my energy system. So not a lot of drinking. I love the beer. So there wasn't a lot of drinking, no weed. I don't think weed fucks with it anyway, but for the type of work I had to do, it was best if I'm still not really able to consume much right now, just for the type of work I have to do it. I can't even have that stuff right now.
Yeah.
Not that it sullies us,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like going on an adventure with the earth each day, like you text a friend, oh, hey, what's up? What are we going to do today? Well, basically I wake up and I do my little alignment meditation thing. And I'm like, all right, so where are we going? And then it's really a matter of I open my heart, I connect to the system, and I just go for a walk, my friend.
Yeah.
My walk always brings me exactly where I need to go. And usually whenever I'm in the middle of that walk, I'll think, where it sounds like a nice place to go? I'll go there. And sometimes that place isn't that nice, but I only needed to go for a day anyway.
Right.
And then usually, you just kind of stick around until it feels like you're done.
Did you go anywhere? Did you go anywhere in Paris? Did you go anywhere in particular?
Well, I went to the Notre Dame. So the Paris thing was weird, right? Because again, this is one of those things. I go there and you're like, okay, there's this narrative of ISIS. There's this, I don't know what's going on with my lights, right? There's a narrative of ISIS. A lot of people would think I was working the narrative of the Rose line or the Magdalene. I specifically was not working that line. And my presence there was on purpose because, there was a lot of suppression. There was a lot of the energy of the suppression of the divine feminine. Although I still think at this point, how we use divine feminine is a divisive term. I will say that there was a lot of suppression, especially on the sexual energy of women, different things going on with relationships, ideas of kind of like slavery, that kind of stuff, weird stuff, and children. And so, I get called to Paris and I'm thinking, whoa, that's interesting. I was never allowed to really go there energetically before. My body was like, absolutely not. Madame. And so we arrived there. Interestingly enough, I got there just like a couple, not very long, maybe 10 days after the cathedral was on fire.
10 days? Just 10 days after? Wow.
Maybe, I don't know how long. I mean, I have no concept of time. I know that it happened in May.
It was recent.
It was within a couple, it was pretty soon, maybe 2 weeks, something like that. It wasn't a month, but anyway, so I arrived there at around that time, and I had been doing some work where we were shifting this ideological stuff earlier that day with another grid worker who was based. They were somewhere in Taiwan, I think at the time, or Singapore, and I had passed out because the work was so intense that I just human me had to go to sleep, and the rest of us were working in the astrals. I woke up and the fucking thing was on fire.
Wow. And
it was like, oh my God. And I'm going to Paris in 2 weeks. It must be time to plant the new seeds, the crystalline pathway seeds, that was really what it was all about. And so whenever I went there, there were certain things I wanted to see, like the Vierge Noire statues, which had some stuff in it for me, but it was mostly to reclaim a very beautiful and begin reconnecting to a very beautiful crystal system and center that had in large part been obstructed by the energy of various narratives holding it down, and to begin breathing life back into it. Probably one of the more interesting parts of my trip to France, which is I'm not sure if I should be talking about this, but I'm going to anyways, that I went to the grotto where Mary Magdalene is supposedly kept. I don't think it's her there. I don't think that surprises anybody. But whenever I went there, I was with somebody else who was another foundational member of the Rose line when we created it. Because, those of us who were part of stuff like that, I'm not doing this anymore, had a responsibility to carry and shift certain patterns of how things were created. So back around the end of May, I was at this grotto with one of the sisters, and excited. You think it's going to be a fun day, whatever. I get to the area where it's at, and I'm like, holy fuck, man, this is some heavy shit around here.
Wow.
Yeah, it was I'm seasoned, so I wasn't scared. I know how to handle this stuff. You just stay calm and in love. But we walked up the mountain, and I was connected. I had to take repeated stops, which never happens for me. The energy was so heavy I could barely walk.
Wow.
At certain points. And we were stopping at certain trees, seeing where there had been a vortex sucking point that was connected to the Rose line idea, especially the idea of the Magdalene. when people were talking about her, when they were bringing it up, a lot of the time it was connecting them to a looping system that was in part being powered by an energy that was caught together at that particular grotto. So you might be able to feel the tightness in your energy as I'm talking about it. That's how powerful that was. And that energy is part of the energy that's being destabilized out of the narrative stuff that's kind of disintegrating right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I went up there with my sister, and we're just like, okay, not what you're expecting. You see faces of things that are not nice things on the walls, you know, like, and like, you know, and you're just like, okay, so this got turned into a vortex operating in a dimensional space that we probably would like to turn off. And so that's what we did.
Yeah.
And, you know, during that time, there was a lot of information that was also coming through about child sex trafficking, and different types of rituals involving sexual activities and murder of children, which was another main theme of my work. But not so much, you know, there were certain vortexes and doors I had to close throughout. But a lot of it this time, on the nice part, let's talk about the new stuff. A lot of my work in this part was less about deconstructing the old timelines and more about, again, planting the crystalline pathway of the new.
Yeah.
So, you know, like when I'm going back to your question, like, what do you do? How do you know? So I woke up one morning when I was in Netherlands, Amsterdam. I was like, all right, I'm going for a walk, guys, peace. You know, because the people I was staying with, Alexi or Kusti and, you know, Vera, Iris, they understood, you know, I'm just going to get up and go do whatever I need. Nobody needs to know where I'm going or ask. They just give you complete freedom, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I just put on my music and I went for a walk. And where does my heart take me? But right to the middle of the a lot of the Jewish Holocaust memorial parts for World War II, because of course, yeah. So of course, and again, it wasn't like I was there slogging away at the war narrative. Whenever I began walking through the community and whenever I began visiting the sites, what I was finding was all these threads of people who has put up their energy signals that they want peace. I have found like parts of people's work that had been working on those lines for a really long time going together. So I spent a lot of time just kind of knitting things together, but also going to each of these sites and planting the energy of freedom and peace. Yeah. And connecting in each and every day, each and everything, each and every time I was brought to a difficult energy point. So how the world works is that energy places become vortex points, collecting points for vibrational stuff, you know. So we've talked about this before. The Titanic was one. I mean, 9/11, that's a place. Yeah. So there are certain places associated with World War II that become vortex points for war energy. Yeah. You know, and so it's not necessarily my job to go turn off all war energy. I can't probably do that. And that's, you know, people have to individually choose peace in their hearts. Yeah. But what I can do is travel around the world to these places, accept the parts of the piece that are part of the codes that are ready to be put in, and then plant them. Yeah. And then make that accessible to the people all through the earth, and you know, use my life and my journey as a peace offering. Yeah. And so that was really what a lot of it was going to places where things had been incredibly unbalanced, you know, where there had been, you know, there was a graveyard that was like for prostitutes and vagabonds. Their bodies were just thrown on top of each other. But those were also places that became very powerful for me whenever I began hooking in the new Earth grid system points. And that was another layer of the job I was doing. You know what I mean? It's like I do a lot of stuff on these journeys. So that was one particular layer of it, you know, was planting these peace energies and helping them grow.
So that seems, maybe that's a parallel to what's happening. I mean, there's been, I'm not saying enough, but there's been a lot of deconstruction, and now there's the construction or the utilization of, you know, the planting the seeds and then actually firing up the grid.
Yeah. Well, and we were part of that, you know, whenever we did the peace event back in December, 12/12, many people here participated in that. And I mean, it's not a surprise that I went to stay with Vera whenever I was doing important parts of that, who was part of that with us, you know. Yeah. A lot of people came forward around that time, and then again through Solstice, signifying that we were ready to do this now. And, you know, there are certain capabilities of the systems, the other systems, the grid systems, for example, and the heart grid, that we're able to open once we have kind of moved past and made these choice points as a collective civilization, you know, because some of this stuff has been really heavily manipulated by people who were not in peace. Yeah. And so, you know, part of the proviso we set for ourselves was, okay, we have to have chosen peace you know, no turning this on until we've chosen peace yet, you know, like let that be a thing. And it's been interesting. And then we saw the bubble of it come up again during Easter.
Yeah.
And so I see it now happening within the individual loops quite small, like in a different scale. And it's like, as soon as people are kind of moving out of or repeating narratives that are not built in that anymore, I feel like they're kind of getting a feedback loop as opposed to that rippling out as much.
Yeah.
To others as it used to. It's almost like a closed circuit response.
Yeah.
So that's also very promising. You just got to remember as a person who chooses peace to keep doing that, even whenever it's easy not to.
Yeah, that resonates. So something occurs or a loop reappears, and there's that, what did you say? There's that internal feedback comes in, closed circuit. I like that.
Closed circuit loop.
So it's like it comes into you, and it's like basically saying, this is what's happening. You know what it is. What are you going to do? Are you going to make a new choice? Which I think that's what you're saying. That's encouraging. You're seeing more and more and more of that.
Yeah, it's what needs to happen, because for way too long, too many people were carrying the burden of other people and picking up the pieces for them. And I think that a lot of people like myself over the years have been like, okay, we have to stop doing that. You know, a lot of empaths, for example, started on the path being like people pleasers and fixers of the stuff. And, you know, you get a lot of people who actually learn to manage their energy because at first they exhausted themselves from always doing that other stuff. And I think you and I have both also exhausted ourselves multiple times. So eventually you just kind of learn, right? To just keep in your own lane, stay in your lane and let other people deal with their stuff. And it becomes a lot less heavy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and it actually, it's a win-win-win for everyone, even though as Morgan's fond of saying, love isn't always pretty.
No, sir.
You know, but you know, we can either enable them, and I think that this is not even, it's like it's happening. People are declaring, they're liberating themselves, and they're liberating themselves from these loops. And they're getting past the guilt and the self-consciousness and the shame and the blame. And they're getting past taking care of other people's shifts. You know, we don't have to do that anymore. You know, and if there's no one to help someone, then what happens? They learn they've got to help themselves, basically.
But then again, it's like, I don't think that you're ever probably, like, you know what I mean? I think help will always be there. But you have to truly, like, you know, I had declared my independence and I'm not kind of doing these jobs for people anymore that they could do themselves. I mean, that if you actually need my help, I'll help you as long as it's in alignment with what's good for me. And I think a lot of people will still stay that same, but I mean, back to the empowerment piece, sometimes we have to learn through doing things. And that's what a lot of these initiations are, you know? And so I see a lot of people kind of getting stuck sometimes that they're looking externally for answers, you know, and they get bored or they get, you know, frustrated. Well, why am I not seeing this thing? And it's like, well, if you would just start talking to yourself and your soul, kind of going back to what I was saying and we were discussing earlier, and really reflecting, going inward to find your answers, you know, you're probably, that's where the best answers are going to be. And if you're finding that you're not moving forward, it's because you're missing probably something like that. And your soul won't let you go further until you kind of figure that stuff out, you know?
Yeah, that's, you're seeing that too. You're seeing I have a couple of people, family close to me. And that loop coming back, and it's coming back, and it's coming back faster and faster. And I was having a conversation with one the other night, and I just said, you know, it's going to keep happening until you change it yourself. You take responsibility.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's kind of a gift. I mean, people kind of, I think we're very quickly learning now that these situations are for our benefit. You know, when something comes up, it's important that we take it as a gift.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's time for me to fix this thing, you know? And it's very tempting to act in the other way. You know, let's talk about forming a pathway for a minute on what it feels like, you know? So the way I experience it is there'll be a thing that's happening, you know, look like that old energy. And I'll just be like, okay, I recognize how energy works and that this is still a thing that's on this planet. So of course I'm feeling its sensation, especially because that would be my old habit.
Right.
To feel, to act, to, you know, connect in that alignment. Now, I talked about the crystalline ascension pathway. We talked about it in the ceremony, connecting to that, or as I used to call it, my primary ascension timeline, call it whatever you want, connecting to the highest vibrational path, connecting to my heart, connecting to peace and love. I see the potential, or I make the potential of a whole other thing to happen. So an example, I was in London last week. I was getting ready to go for the day, and I could feel the ripple of what that other day would have been. And that other day was not going to be a nice day. If I would have done a certain sites, done it in a certain order with a certain idea in my mind, I could feel the energy. I could even feel the energy of the movements I would take and how it would happen playing out. And I, recognized that this was just that old timeline, that old narrative. And I was there to create an opening of the new. Yeah. And so having that discipline within myself to trust what I was doing, I was like, no, all right, not even doing that. And then I just spoke it out loud. All right, today I'm putting on this music. I'm going to go and have an awesome day in a city that I love. I'm going to go visit places that I care about a lot. And I'm going to meet a whole bunch of trees, and it's going to be awesome. And I went, and I just went and I did that. And even though, doing that, consciously planning that as my ascension pathway now, and opening that potential for all the people coming after me who might be coming and working on doing any of those particular jobs. We're not doing it like that anymore. And so, yeah, it took a lot of discipline to not go into that other narrative, because it involved things like safety and well-being. And then I was like, you're fucking fine. You're just go for a walk. You wanted to come here. Right. You love London. Just shut up and go for a walk. That's pretty much what I told myself. Go get a pie.
I call it the uncomfortable comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's so crazy because we want to stay there because we know what it is, even though we're not comfortable there, instead of going into what we don't know what it is, which actually is what you're describing. What was it like? What was it like being in the physical presence of 4, 5, 6 other people in Amsterdam? Vera and Augusti, and I think Marco was there.
Yeah, and Natasha. Yeah, and then we also had Iris, who came the next day. It was fantastic.
What was that like? I mean,
the first thing is that we all felt drunk for 2 days afterwards. We weren't, because when we got together, it's just so many other people coming together in pure intent, for one thing.
Yeah.
Everybody who came to meet and hang out was coming for the right reasons. They were coming in love and peace and joy. And so thing number one, sometimes when you come in groups, there's agendas. There weren't any agendas here other than to just be who we were,
right,
and to meet each other and to enjoy one another's company. I mean, the first moment Vera found me, I was sitting in the train station. I have been traveling all day. I was just wound up on a train from Belgium somehow, but I was really happy about that. One of my Marseille train disasters, trying to get out of that country. There's usually something always used to happen. And so I had all my Andaras in my bag and sitting there, and I just felt them, and I was like, oh, I can hear them. So I just opened up my bag and I was like, oh, are you guys okay? And then I look up and there's Vera. And that was how we said hello to each other. I was like, well, that's perfect. So one thing that happens, I've been with a lot of groups in my life, and a lot of the time groups come with dynamics of expectation. There's usually someone who throws a shit fit because they don't get their way. People have their shadow. I don't even like that word anymore. They have parts of themselves that are, for whatever reason, not rubbing with the mesh of the group, come up to be dealt with, and things happen. In the past, and I understand why people are sometimes hesitant of groups, because in the past it has been disastrous.
Yeah.
However, again, coming back to this, we were all there because we wanted to be. None of us are karmically indebted to working together. This is friends who care about the earth, who wanted to hang out. Yeah. And we all do our personal work, right? So we get there and it's just and it was amazing. And so, a lot of the time when I was around, the next day, the second day I was with them, we went to a festival. And so dancing, as you know, is my thing. And we got to see a bunch of my favorite artists. I didn't even really talk that day, because I was busy dancing. Natasha was my dance partner. Hello to her. And, we connected in the universe, coded through the universe, or our particular star systems, through the entire dance that we did. So over the course of about 6 hours, we danced in a bunch of frequency into the sun discs.
Wow.
And it was really fun doing that without having, we didn't talk about it. We just were put into places through our flow that we would be doing stuff. You know, we knew that our hearts were open to our connection to one another. We didn't get all fucked up as you might think you would in Amsterdam. We didn't. We just danced and did our work, and it was good. It was pretty psychedelic, to be honest. And then, you know, there was not a lot of talking actually of the ideas this particular time. It was a lot of feeling and code exchange.
Yeah.
And becoming friends.
Yeah,
And
that's
forming bonds of trust.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That seems to be you know, something that's coming up to the surface now. Is that, you know, enough work's been done, and to be able to come together, and you don't have those episodes, those dramas, and
No.
you know, everyone's got a pure intention, and really that pure intention is just really simple. It's just like you said, it's just becoming friends.
Yep.
Right. Just expanding the friendship.
Yep. And I think everybody, even if anybody did have a flare up, everyone was self-aware and knows how to deal with that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, like in these cases, we don't have, like I said, these people are not people I'm karmically indebted to work with. We are coming together to build new things for Earth. So it's really just about getting to know a person's vibration this time and getting an idea of how they think, you know, and getting an idea of what it's like to kind of hang out with them. And then these are things like we, for example, have communicated and worked together on things afterward.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that will continue happening as the flow expands. I think continuing to meet one another and not pushing any particular thing, you know, doing what feels right in the moment, kind of like connecting over the local area is a really good way for people to get to know one another, because it's just a different kind of connection after you've done that.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a well, I can say it, John Harris and Nancy Jo Hook, they got married a month ago, and they came over to Kauai and for their honeymoon. So we hooked up with them yesterday. Went to a couple of waterfalls, went swimming, you know, and then we hooked up. We brought in one of the couples here on the organic farm, a young couple like your age. And so we all six of us just hung out, man. We went to dinner, we just hung out, we did some cards. I mean, that's what it was. It was just expanding the friendships, getting to know each other better. And there wasn't any, you know, any foo-foo going on or anything like that.
No. And I mean, like, we talked some stuff and I connected about like how to work the places in each of the places. Like when I was with Katie Potter, Natasha also in Amsterdam, like we did a lot of site visits, but those are people who work more specifically on tasks like I do. And so for us, our flow naturally was to go and do stuff because that's just who we are as people. You know, it's like, if you want to go hang out with this tree, absolutely. You know what I mean? You just go with the flow and allow you the relationships to form creatively over as they're inspired to be. No agenda. I think the key of it is that it's no agenda. And you know, just it's so encouraging and refreshing to just be around people vibrating at a high frequency. You don't even have to talk.
No, that's the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
just having fun together. It doesn't always have to be that agenda.
No. And the talking becomes less and less.
Yeah.
Becomes less and less. So, and you went to Notre Dame, or whatever it's called?
I was right outside of it. Yes.
Well, no, I'm just curious. In the aftermath, so you went in the aftermath of it. What did that feel like? What kind of feeling were you getting from it?
Well, I'll tell you that initially I was not allowed to go to Paris because it would be too heavy and it would lead me to burnout. And so this is not my first pass through, you know, France. This is not my first rodeo there. But I've always specifically been told not to go to Paris. And so the change and the transformation began, like I said, the day that the fire happened. I knew things had shifted.
Yeah.
So whenever I got there this time, what I felt was a clarity of like I felt not that much, you know, in terms of the old history or the bullshit. What I felt was a new and a different clarity.
Yeah.
And a new and a different potential.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I walked and spent a lot of time with the river and just gathering information about it. You know, the city is not turned on fully yet, but it's humming again.
Yeah.
you know, and it is an important energy system, a new earth energy system. There's a lot of crystal centers that are around there.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
the energy of the country is in fact still clearing and still shifting. There's a lot of stuff in particular in the south that is quite heavy still. And it's being filtered out. And so you'll notice that I take particular parts of journeys. What I'm doing is building systems to clear this shit out of there.
Yeah.
But Paris in itself, I think the energy of revolution has been powerful.
Yeah.
I think that the energy of, you know, there was a lot of beautiful things that happened there before it was, you know, Paris.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
it remains in balance. You know, it's remaining now that I've kind of connected it back in. We'll see what happens. You know, what I felt when I went there, and I know I'm not giving a very interesting story, but like what I felt when I lived there was a wildness and a freedom that I don't think had been there for some time.
Good.
That's what I felt.
That's a good thing. We need some of that wildness and freedom.
Yeah, that's what I felt. And that's what I was there for. You know, I went and saw a couple of the statues. I was effectively blocked from a lot of that stuff. A lot of it was, you know, recognizing the potential of Paris as a power center.
Yeah.
You know, and not using the Eiffel Tower as one, because that was part of the old system that I was talking about earlier about the underground weird shit and, you know, children and stuff like that. You know, that center had been used for lower vibrational kind of energy filtering for some time. It's not turned on like that anymore, so there's no need to worry. There's no need to have any fear. But I had to make sure that a lot of that stuff had shifted out. And so another thing for me was that it was really good. I couldn't find that. I mean, another part that I was brought there for, though, was the art. You know, because the Mona Lisa had, like, did we talk about the Mona Lisa the last time?
You hadn't been, or had you been? Yeah, you had.
I had been.
Oh,
so
yeah, you did.
Like Mona Lisa, Venus de Milo, a whole bunch of, you know, really beautiful paintings and sculptures, pieces of art. Then within the, you know, art is a representation in many ways of the essential form, and it's what an artist is in a lot of ways is doing is creating ways to reflect that form in matter. And so there was some really skilled artistry, and a lot of really beautiful energy that was present in the Louvre that was ready to be integrated back into the grids. And so, you know, one of the things that I found and my feeling of Paris is a very feminine city. You know, it's a very feminine energy. It's got a lot of, it was the temples of Isis, which was what was underneath Notre Dame. There's a whole bunch of other sites that are around there that we would have been using for various forms of pagan connection. There's a sun disk nearby. You know, it had another life that I think.
What about the people there in general? Is it like walking around in the States, like in New York or Chicago, Boston, or are people, are they more open?
Well, I've never really walked around in New York or Boston, or sorry, Chicago. I've been in Boston. I've been in mega cities though, like big cities. Yeah. And do I find them more open? To be honest,
are they more suppressed?
I wouldn't use those terms. I can't give a fair one this time because I was traveling with Olga when I was in Paris and I wasn't alone. And so when you're with a person, it shuts off certain forms of communication with other people. The moment that I am alone, I never have a problem, but that's probably just because of who I am. So I don't think that I'm really fair to say that. You know, one thing that I like about the French as a culture is that they have time for drinking and eating with friends. And so like the thing I like the most about being there, which is also kind of annoying, is that it's like very difficult to figure out when shops will be open. You know, sometimes it's like it's Monday at 10 a.m. You fucked. You're not getting anything from anywhere. There might be a bakery. The bakeries are definitely open. But like, you know, it's just a very different culture of taking time to yourself. Taking time to rest, taking time to enjoy. And so I think that honestly, people are healthier there. Yeah. You know, they have they have less obesity, they have longer, like pretty long lifespans. There's not a lot of murder. You know, when was the last time you heard about the horrific gang violence rippling through parts of, you know, probably the Knights Templar when parts of them went bad? Like, let's just be honest here. So there is the social rebellion aspect going on right now, but I think that's a really important part of awakening. Because like we've talked about this before, injustice is something that people need to see as part of the dissolving of the veil, or as you said earlier, disclosure.
Yeah.
You know, for me, once the 2008 banking crisis happened, and then shortly after that, you know, the World Bank and IMF came swooping in, and what happened in Europe, I mean, I was totally disillusioned.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of me being able to walk away from academia forever, because I realized that as long as I was working in that system, I was never going to be able to fix anything.
Yeah. What about, I know you've had a beat on the energy of abundance in all extremes, and you know, many of us have. It seems to be, something seems to be happening. And actually, you had something happen to you when you were in Paris and you got stuck in the hotel and you reached out to the community, but there's been other evidence. There seems to be stuff breaking down and stuff, like you were saying, when you go to these places where it's all gone now. Now it's time to plant the seeds and construct. I mean, do you have any?
It's also not an accident that I was where Brexit's supposed to be. And I mean, like, one of the things that I've also done as part of my lifestyle time is an intensive study of this form of statecraft and government. You know, and that was a huge focus of my PhD, which initially brought me to Europe when the awakening happened. And so I'm planting the seeds also of that. But one thing I do have to say on that is that I don't use the term abundance anymore, because it's been uttered so many times in a lack situation that it now carries a lack vibration itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing people talking about abundance codes, and they're giving out these codes and all this shit, but these people haven't found abundance themselves yet. And I'm like, okay, so guys, why are we taking codes from people? You're repeating the energy patterns. So we're in a bit of a loop. You know, I see things happening, but I also am going to be very frank and say I see a loop happening because people keep looking and recycling and using terms. And, you know, there's like, oh, look at this code for this thing. Okay, so I think codes are amazing. You know, I use them myself. I share them all the time. But it's like a person who has achieved that state, like how a code works and being delivered through a human vessel is that human vessel has to have experienced that peace.
Yeah.
And so there's codes that can help bring us there. And that's also part of it. But then there's times whenever we're just mindlessly consuming codes because we think that's going to help us, as opposed to what we could probably be doing instead was calling forth the energy of crystalline resource circulation, or one of the more updated terms, into our life and allowing ourselves to begin creating our own form. Yeah. I think this is really something that is, you know, community creative, but also on an individual level.
Yeah. And
so allowing yourself to create your own pathway, I think, is really empowering. And so I'm back home again. I'm working through that loop a little bit of creating out of the crystalline ascension pathway. Because, you know, sometimes people, I don't know, but that's just also an invitation for me to change how I do things. Yeah. You know, I knew that when I came home after a big journey like that, everything I would do and how I would do it would have to change. That's how these things work. And so I'm working on expanding and shifting my process to give me the time and the space, but so that I'm also here and doing what I need to do in the ways that bring me and share me, you know, in its highest vibrational form.
So I have to ask you before we get out of here. So what did Damien have to say when you got home?
Well, thank God you're home. We have a crystal that is misplaced in our house right now that has been on a bit of a journey. So he immediately started asking about the crystal. But I was being irresponsible and drank a couple beer and then ate garlic fingers. So we didn't really talk that day. God forbid, I didn't focus on Damien 100%. I was there, but I wasn't giving him my best. So then he got mad at me. And then he told me that I did a good job. And he told me that he was more proud of me than he's ever been. And then he knew that I would come back. He doesn't like to be away from me. But he just said, you know, we were connecting a lot astrally. And he just told me, and he's saying it again now, he's so proud of the person I've become.
Wow.
You know? It took a lot for me to go there and do what I did in the peacetime, and with all this peace stuff, because there's just so many possible sidelines and sidewinders that you can get into. And, you know, it's very important to remain in your highest vibrational alignment. And for me, it's the crystalline ascension pathway as you act, because it's so easy to repeat the old stuff, you know. And this goes back to why I was saying at the beginning of why it's so important to begin to listen to your own narrative.
Yeah.
Because we're the ones creating this now.
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah. Yeah, having the confidence to listen to what you're receiving. A couple of comments here reflecting that. Yeah, but that's that's it. You know, that's sovereignty. So you know what? If we're doing that, then the time we do spend together, it can be like y'all did in Amsterdam. You know, just mostly just expanding a friendship, creating, expanding, yeah, and having fun. Yes, laughing. I laughed my ass off last night.
Yeah, I saw the pictures and it looked like you were having fun.
We had a great time.
So before we go, I want to tell people again about the ceremony that I shared. And I want to remind them of the point that we started off at the beginning with. And so if you're tuned in late, you might want to go back because this gateway is still open. This is a really good time for your personal gifts and your personal alignments to be calling in. This is going to set the scope for our entire Lionsgate season and our eclipses. And so a couple extra moments connecting into yourself, first and foremost, and really securing that as an interest is going to be really important. So the ceremony's there. And this is open for about 10 days. So, you know, highly recommending that people take those little opportunities when the things come off of those old pathways. Remember what Todd and I just talked about here and have the courage and the grace to form the new one, because that's why this is happening. And so, Todd, I hope we can get back together and do another show during Lionsgate, July 8th, I think is the day.
Is it July 8th or August 8th?
Oh, there's other stuff in August. I don't know. There's something going on July 8th.
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely. Just
we'll keep going with our series, and I'm going to always be sharing the ceremony stuff, the group stuff through Soulogy with Todd.
Yeah,
and you know, you can always find us on IndiCrow Energetics, but also in the Soulogy place. And I just want to say thanks for Morgan for getting back to me immediately on this, and Todd for fitting me in. It's nice to have you part of the Solstice tradition now, or part of the Gateway tradition.
Absolutely.
It's probably our 6th big one together or something like that. It's our year. We did this together last year, the day I was moving.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh my God, lots happened in a year. I am putting the URL address to the Solstice
Thank you
ceremony from this morning in the comments right now.
Thank you. Yeah. So that anybody who wants to take it, you know, get into this flow and really become empowered creators. So, you know, all that information is there for you.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Right on. Absolutely.
I feel like I was intense today. I was less laughy than normal. Sorry if I was a little too intense there.
No, you and I both been a lot more intense than this.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I like talking about some of the stories of the stuff that has happened because this is the first time I've talked about it, right?
Very good information. Very good.
Yeah, well, thanks for creating the space, and you know, this dialogue is such a nice one to have, and I'm just very grateful for you, Todd.
I'm grateful for you. You know that. You know.
And a big thank you to Morgan as well.
Absolutely. And everybody, remember, this is the year of collaboration, co-creation, sovereignty, and expansion, supporting our brothers and sisters in unequal energy exchange. So be sure and check Katie out on YouTube, at her website, on her pages, IndiCrow Energetics, and support her and create an exchange of energy with the incredible, versatile, broad range of services support that she offers.
Yeah. Well, much love.
Much love to you. Bye-bye, Damien.
He says bye, Todd and Morgan.
And Morgan. All right.